All right, so get ready for a deep dive into 1990s Helsinki. We're going to be looking at a true crime story that, sounds like it's straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
This group, called the Honda Gang,
Yeah.
they pretty much ran the criminal underworld there for a while. And we've got some really interesting sources for this one.
Oh, yeah.
We've got news articles, and we even have some firsthand accounts from a police officer who actually worked the case.
Wow.
So we're going to get the real deal here.
That's amazing. What I find really interesting about this is how it intertwines with kind of the societal landscape of Helsinki at the time.
Yeah.
And how, we can really untangle not just their crimes, but kind of what fueled them and what made them so successful, at least for a while.
Yeah, and this wasn't just some petty crime spree.
Yeah.
We're talking armed robberies,
Right.
burglaries, even a police station break-in.
Wow.
And the name Honda Gang, I'm guessing that's not because they were just car enthusiasts.
You got it. That was their signature move. They used stolen Hondas as getaway vehicles. Always left idling near the target. In and out in about 2 minutes, armed with sawed-off shotguns.
Wow.
And they'd create chaos by emptying fire extinguishers in the car. So it was...
Okay, that's pretty slick, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But their operation was way bigger than a few stolen cars.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of scale are we talking about?
Think 20 armed robberies.
Wow.
Across Helsinki, Vantaa, and Tuusula. They managed to get away with almost 5 million finish marks.
That's a lot.
Yeah. But they were more than just bank robbers. We had 6 business robberies, 4 attempted ATM mobbings, 13 major burglaries.
It sounds like they were busy.
They were busy. Drug dealing, car theft, firearms offenses, you name it. They probably did it.
Wow. They really did have their fingers in every criminal pie, huh?
They did.
It makes you wonder what was driving them. Were they like these criminal masterminds or something?
Well, that's where the story takes a bit of a turn.
Okay.
It seems their primary motivation was actually feeding a pretty heavy heroin addiction.
Okay, so that explains the need for constant cash flow. But how heavy are we talking?
Oh.
Were they casual users, or was this like a whole other level?
This was another level. The sources say they were spending somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 finish marks per day per person on heroin.
Per day. That's unbelievable.
Per day. And here's the kicker. They were smoking it.
Smoking it.
Oh.
Hold on. Doesn't that make it way more expensive than injecting?
Exactly. It requires much more heroin to get the same effect.
Oh, wow.
Meaning they were deep in the throes of addiction.
Yeah.
And that level of spending paints a very different picture of their motives.
It really does put things into perspective.
Yeah.
It's suddenly less about greed and more about desperation.
Right.
It seems like their crimes were fueled by a need that just kept escalating.
Yeah.
So how did the police finally get a handle on them? Were there any close calls?
You'd think a gang this active would be easy to catch.
Right.
But they were good at staying under the radar.
Yeah.
Initially, the police were stumped. They had fingerprints but no matches. And then, as often happens in these cases, they got a lucky break. A viewer tip from a crime show called Police TV.
Oh, that's interesting. A civilian tip.
Yeah.
It's like a classic true crime element, isn't it?
It is.
So what did this tipster tell them? Did they name names?
They did. They gave the police their first real leads.
Okay.
2 guys known as Bragg and Ananen.
Okay. So now the police have names. But how do you go about building a case against a gang that's this experienced and this good at covering their tracks?
It was a careful and strategic process.
Yeah.
They started by tracking Ananen's movements, especially his daily heroin runs.
Oh, so like following the money trail, kind of?
Kinda. It gave them a glimpse into his network and his habits.
Clever. So it's not just about catching them red-handed,
No.
but understanding their patterns.
Exactly. They were also discreetly tailing other gang members,
Oh, really?
gathering discarded clothing, anything that might have forensic evidence.
Oh, wow.
It was a slow burn building a solid case without tipping them off.
Sounds like detective work, straight out of textbook. So did they manage to arrest Anonin?
Tragically, Anonen died from an overdose before they could apprehend him.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah,
It really drives home the reality of their addiction and like the high stakes that they were playing with.
definitely.
So what happened after that? Did the investigation stall?
Not at all. The real turning point came when another member, Peltoniemi, was arrested.
Okay.
And he started talking,
Uh,
revealing the extent of their activities and implicating others.
so it's the classic domino effect.
Yeah.
One confession starts to bring the whole house down.
Precisely, Peltoniemi's confession forced others to confirm his story, and that led to a series of arrests.
Okay, so things are starting to unravel for the Honda gang. What about Bragg, the other name from the tip?
Right.
Did he crack under pressure?
He held out for a while.
Oh, really?
It was actually Ivarnen, another key member, who broke first.
Okay.
He'd been in custody for 2 months and finally confessed to the robberies.
Wow.
He even revealed where they'd stashed a bunch of weapons.
A hidden weapons cache. Okay, that's not just petty crime anymore. That sounds serious.
Yeah, it was a significant find. The cache included a submachine gun and a bunch of sawed-off shotguns,
Wow.
highlighting just how dangerous this gang was.
Yeah, that's chilling.
Yeah.
So Savarinen spills the beans. They find the weapons. What about Bragg? Did he finally talk?
With the evidence mounting, he had little choice but to confess.
Yeah.
He kept his statements brief, but it was enough to confirm his involvement.
Okay, so the police work, that lucky tip and Peltoniami's confession all played a part in bringing them down.
Right.
It's amazing how, like, one piece of information can unravel this whole criminal network, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating are the anecdotes the police officers share.
Oh, yeah, I was about to ask about that.
Right.
You know, hearing those personal details, they really bring a case to life.
Yeah.
So what kind of stories did he tell?
Well, for one, there was the time the gang completely overslept their planned robbery
Right.
because they overdosed on heroin.
Oh, no.
Imagine that foiled by a drug-induced nap.
Wow. Talk about irony.
Yeah.
I can't believe they were that reckless.
Yeah.
What else?
There's another anecdote where they actually had to go back to a crime scene because they forgot a bag of money.
Are you serious?
It seems their heroin use sometimes interfered with their criminal efficiency.
Wow. Okay. Anything else?
And then there was this instance where a customer during a robbery refused to lie down even when they pointed a shotgun at him.
Oh my gosh. Really? What happened?
It just goes to show you how unpredictable people can be even in those situations.
Yeah.
But these stories paint a picture of a gang that was, at times, as chaotic and dysfunctional as they were dangerous.
Yeah, it sounds like their lives were a constant mix of, like, highs and lows.
Yeah,
Both literally and figuratively.
for sure.
What other insights did the officers share?
Well, there's a story about one of their attempted ATM bombings.
Okay.
One member actually started having second thoughts about the whole plan.
Really? So maybe not everyone was fully on board with the increasing danger of their crimes.
It seems there were internal conflicts brewing, maybe fueled by fear, or even a touch of conscience.
That's really interesting how even within a criminal gang there can be those moral struggles.
Yeah.
So what happened with the ATM bombing? Did it work?
It was a complete disaster.
Really?
The expert they recruited for the job was anything but.
Oh, no.
The explosives were either too small, too big, or didn't detonate at all.
It's almost comical. It sounds like their luck or maybe their lack of planning was starting to catch up to...
Yeah.
Did the officer mention any other incidents that stand out?
He described the final robbery brag. The ringleader had a rather embarrassing moment. His mask slipped down while he was driving the getaway car, blinding him.
Oh, no. That sounds like something out of slapstick comedy. What happened? Did they crash?
They did. They crashed into a snowbank. And ironically, it was some helpful bystanders who came to their aid.
Oh, no.
Completely unaware they were assisting notorious criminals.
You can't make this stuff up. But with all these arrests and confessions, it sounds like the Honda gang's reign was finally coming to an end.
Right.
What happened next? Were they put on trial?
Justice was finally served in June 1994.
Okay.
The main players, Bragg, Ivarinen, and Peltoniemi, received sentences of 10 to 12 years.
Okay, so that seems like a pretty substantial sentence.
Yeah.
Did everyone involved get the same?
Peltoniemi actually got a reduced sentence because he cooperated with the police.
Oh, okay.
Others involved in the robberies and property crimes received sentences ranging from 2.5 to 5 years.
So the ringleaders got hit the hardest, and the others faced consequences as well.
But wait, wasn't there something about an escape attempt?
You have a good memory.
Yeah.
There's one final twist to the story. Bragg attempted a daring escape during his father's funeral.
Wait, what? During a funeral? Now that's audacious, even for him. Did he actually pull it off?
No, thankfully he didn't.
Oh.
The police had anticipated a potential escape attempt and were ready for him.
Wow.
It was a short-lived taste of freedom.
This story just keeps getting wilder. From bungled robberies to funeral escapes, it's been quite a ride so far.
Yeah. But with Bragg back behind bars, I imagine the Honda gang saga was finally over.
It certainly seems like the end of their story, but their case raises some intriguing questions about the impact of their actions.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about their crimes,
Right.
but what about the victims?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We tend to focus on the perpetrators.
Right.
But there's a whole other side of the story.
There is.
What can you tell us about the victims and, like, the impact on Helsinki as a whole?
Well, unfortunately, the sources don't delve into specific details about the victims,
Okay.
but we can only imagine the lasting effects of those experiences. The fear, the trauma, these are things that can stay with people for a long time.
Absolutely. Bank tellers, shop owners, even those bystanders who helped them after that car crash.
Right.
They were all caught in the wake of this gang's actions.
Exactly. It underscores the fact that crime is not just a statistic.
Yeah,
It's a ripple effect that touches countless lives.
right. It's easy to lose sight of the human cost when we're so focused on the details of the investigation and the pursuit of justice.
For sure.
And speaking of those affected, what about the police officer who shared his account?
Right.
Did he talk about the emotional toll of working on a case like this?
He did mention it was a challenging investigation.
Yeah.
He spoke about the long hours, the dead ends, the constant pressure to catch these guys.
It's easy to forget that police officers are human, too.
Yeah.
They carry a lot of weight on their shoulders, especially when dealing with dangerous criminals.
Absolutely. And remember, this was a time when heroin use was a growing problem in Helsinki.
Yeah.
This case wasn't just about catching criminals, it was about grappling with a complex societal issue.
So their story becomes a reflection of a specific moment in time.
Yeah.
Kind of a dark chapter for the city.
Exactly. It's not just about the thrill of the chase,
Yeah.
but understanding the wider context, the desperation, and the societal forces at play.
It makes you think, could a gang like the Honda gang even emerge in today's world? With all the advanced security measures we have we learned from the past?
That's a great question, and one that deserves further discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, while security technology has come a long way since the 90s,
Yeah.
crime evolves too.
Right.
New challenges always emerge.
It's like a constant arms race.
Yeah.
And the motivations behind crime, things like desperation, poverty, addiction, those issues haven't gone away.
Absolutely. So while the Honda gang might be a thing of the past, the factors that contributed to their rise are still relevant.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But for now, let's focus on that attempted escape at the funeral.
Okay.
That detail has been stuck in my mind since we started.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about what happened?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Picture a somber funeral procession. Mourners gathered to pay their respects.
Right.
And in the midst of it all, a convicted criminal plotting his escape.
Okay, now you've got my full attention. Let's hear how this audacious escape attempt unfolded.
Well, it all started with a strategically placed getaway car.
Okay.
A Mazda was parked near the cemetery gate's engine, running with a weapon hidden inside.
Wow.
Bragg must have had some accomplices on the outside helping him orchestrate this.
Wow, a weapon.
Yeah.
That raises the stakes considerably. He wasn't planning on going quietly, was he?
It suggests a level of desperation and a willingness to use force to get away.
Yeah.
But the police weren't naive. They knew Bragg's history.
Right.
This was the guy who, during a robbery, had his mask slip down while driving the getaway car.
Right. So he was known to be impulsive and unpredictable.
Exactly.
The police must have been on high alert.
They had a feeling the funeral might present an opportunity for Bragg to try something.
Okay.
They discreetly increased security around the cemetery, keeping a close eye on him and all possible escape routes.
That must have been a delicate operation.
Yeah.
You've got grieving mourners, a potentially volatile situation.
Right.
And the need to maintain order. How did they manage that?
It required a careful balance. They couldn't disrupt the funeral or cause unnecessary alarm.
Right.
But they also had to be prepared to act swiftly if Bragg made a run for it.
Yeah, it sounds like they were walking a tightrope trying to anticipate his every move.
Right.
So did Bragg actually try to escape?
He did. As the funeral procession was nearing its end, he seized his moment and made a dash towards the waiting Mazda.
I can only imagine the surge of adrenaline, both for Bragg and the officers watching him.
Yeah.
Did they manage to stop him in time?
Yes. Thankfully, they did.
Oh, good.
They were already in position and intercepted him before he could reach the Mazda and the weapon inside.
That must have been a tense moment for everyone present.
Oh, yeah.
It's a relief that no one was hurt in the process.
Right.
But this failed escape attempt, what kind of impact did that have on the public perception of Bragg and the case as a whole?
It reinforced the public's view of him as a dangerous and reckless individual.
Yeah.
Attempting to escape during his own father's funeral, I mean, that's a bold move even for a hardened criminal.
Yeah, I can see how that would generate a lot of outrage.
Right.
It shows a blatant disregard for the law and just a lack of respect for the solemnity of the occasion.
For sure.
Did the police face any criticism for allowing him to attend the funeral in the first place, knowing he might try something?
There were definitely some who questioned that decision.
Yeah.
Some argued it was an unnecessary risk,
Right.
but others defended the police, pointing out that they'd taken precautions and successfully prevented a potentially violent situation.
Yeah, it's a tough call, isn't it? Balancing compassion with security concerns is never easy.
It's not.
Did this incident lead to any changes in how authorities handle similar situations?
It prompted a review of security protocols
Okay.
for events involving high-risk individuals.
Yeah,
It highlighted the importance of being prepared for the unexpected
right.
while maintaining a respectful environment.
It's a reminder that even in the most controlled environments, there's always an element of unpredictability when dealing with someone like Bragg. But, we've talked a lot about the crimes, the investigation, the escape attempts.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the drama of it all.
Yeah.
What about the victims of the Honda gang?
Right.
What can you tell us about the impact of their crimes on the community?
It's a crucial aspect of the story that often gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
The sources don't provide specific details about individual victims,
Okay.
but we can imagine the lasting impact of those experiences.
Nice.
The fear, the trauma.
Right.
These are things that can stay with people for a long time.
Absolutely. Bank tellers, shop owners, even those bystanders who unwittingly helped them after that car crash.
Yeah.
They were all caught in the wake of this gang's actions.
Right. It underscores the fact that crime is not just a statistic.
Right.
It's a ripple effect that touches countless lives.
Yeah. It's easy to lose sight of the human cost when we're so focused on the details of the investigation and the pursuit of justice.
For sure.
And speaking of those affected, what about the police officer who provided his firsthand account? Did he speak about the emotional toll of working on a case like this?
He did mention the challenges and frustrations of the investigation.
Yeah.
The long hours, the dead ends, the constant pressure to bring those responsible to justice.
It must have been incredibly draining,
Yeah.
both mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
Especially considering the backdrop of Helsinki at the time with heroin addiction on the rise.
Right. The Honda gang story becomes more than just a true crime tale.
Yeah.
It's a window into a specific time and place,
Right.
a society grappling with complex issues.
It makes you wonder, could a gang like this emerge today
Right?
with all the advancements in security technology?
Right.
Have we learned from the past?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
While technology has advanced,
Yeah.
so have criminal methods. It's a constant game of cat and mouse.
Right.
And let's not forget the underlying motivations.
Yeah.
Desperation, poverty, addiction. These issues haven't gone away.
So while the Honda gang might be a relic of the past, the factors that contributed to their rise are still relevant today.
Absolutely.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious about that anonymous tip from the Police TV viewer.
Yeah.
Did the police ever find out who that person was?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the sources don't provide any further information about the tipster.
Oh, okay.
Their identity and motivations remain a mystery.
That's intriguing. It makes you wonder, did they ever realize how crucial their call was?
Right.
How they played a pivotal role in bringing down this notorious gang?
They were an unsung hero contributing to the pursuit of justice from the shadows.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a story about individual choices, societal pressures,
Yeah.
and perhaps even a touch of fate.
Right.
But before we delve into those philosophical questions, there's one more aspect of this case that I think deserves attention.
Okay. I'm all ears. What are you thinking?
Let's talk about that botched ATM bombing.
Okay.
You mentioned one gang member had second thoughts about the plan.
Right.
It seems like there's a deeper story there, a glimpse into the internal dynamics of the gang.
You're right. It would be interesting to explore that further.
Yeah.
The doubts, the conflicts, the pressures that might have been building up within the gang.
Let's dive into that, shall we?
Okay.
I want to hear what led to that moment of hesitation and what it reveals about the individuals behind those seemingly fearless criminal acts.
Well, to understand that moment, we need to go back to the beginning of the Honda gang's rise. So we left off with the beginning of the gang's rise.
Right. And this one gang member, he's having second thoughts about their increasingly dangerous activities.
Exactly. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. You think about a criminal gang and you assume everyone's on the same page,
Yeah, you would think.
especially when the stakes are so high.
Right.
But this shows that there were cracks in their unity. We're talking about young men, probably in their late teens or early 20s, grappling with addiction,
Yeah.
making reckless choices.
It humanizes them a bit, doesn't it?
It does. So what can you tell us about this particular gang member and his hesitation?
Well, unfortunately, the sources don't give us his name. or any specific details about his background.
Okay.
But the fact that he voiced his concerns,
Yeah,
that he questioned the plan, tells us something.
it really does. What do you think was going through his mind? Was it fear, a sense of guilt, or maybe he was just realizing that they were in over their heads?
Probably a combination of factors.
Yeah.
Maybe he was seeing the escalating violence,
Right.
realizing it was only a matter of time before someone got seriously hurt, or worse.
Yeah,
Perhaps he was starting to feel the weight of their actions, the impact on their victims.
that makes sense. It's almost like a moral awakening happening in the middle of this criminal spiral.
Yeah.
Do we know how the other gang members reacted to his hesitation?
The sources don't go into detail about their response,
Okay.
but you can imagine there was pressure to conform,
Yeah.
to stay loyal to the group.
Right. It's that classic dilemma.
Yeah,
Follow your conscience or stick with the pack,
exactly.
especially when that pack is involved in dangerous activities.
Right. And in this case, it seems the pressure to conform won out.
Yeah.
Despite his doubts, he participated in the bombing,
Right.
which, as we know, was a complete failure.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how that experience might have affected him afterwards.
Yeah.
Did he ever express any remorse or regret?
Unfortunately, the sources don't give us any further insight into his feelings.
Okay.
We can only speculate.
Right. It's a reminder that even within a group dynamic, there are individual stories, internal struggles that we might never fully know.
For sure. And those individual stories, they add another layer of complexity to the Honda Gang's saga.
Definitely.
It's not just a black and white tale of crime and punishment.
Right.
There are shades of gray,
Yeah.
moments of doubt, glimpses of humanity that challenge our assumptions.
It's those glimpses of humanity that make this case so compelling.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that even behind the most audacious crimes,
right,
there are real people
right.
with complex motivations, internal conflicts.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really valuable takeaway for our listeners. Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the sensationalism of true crime. Right. But it's important to remember these are real lives,
Yeah.
real stories, with consequences that reach far beyond the headlines.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
The Honda Gang's rise and fall, their motivations, their victims, their internal struggles, even the role of chance in their downfall.
We've seen how all those specific details connect to the broader context of Helsinki in the 1990s,
Right.
exploring the societal factors that contributed to their story.
It's been a fascinating journey, full of twists and turns, moments of audacity and desperation. But what I find most intriguing is how their story prompts us to ask deeper questions
Yeah.
about ourselves and the world around us.
That's the power of a deep dive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about absorbing information.
Right.
It's about engaging with it,
Right.
challenging our assumptions,
Yeah,
and coming away with a new perspective.
absolutely. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What resonates with you most from this story
What thoughts or questions has it sparked for you?
about crime addiction? Or even the choices we make when faced with difficult circumstances?
We encourage you to continue exploring these questions, to dive deeper into the issues that intrigue you.
To keep seeking knowledge and understanding.
Remember, the journey of learning is never truly over. There are always new depths to explore, new perspectives to consider, new insights to uncover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of 1990s Helsinki and the compelling, if sometimes unsettling saga of the Honda Gang.
And next time.
Keep your minds open and your curiosity alive.
So we've got this gang member, right? He's having second thoughts about the ATM bombing.
Yeah, it's such a weird contrast.
Yeah.
You think about a criminal gang and you assume they're all hardcore,
Right.
but this guy's like, wait a minute.
It's not so simple, is it? Remember, these are young men, probably in their late teens or early 20s. They're grappling with addiction.
Right.
They're making reckless choices. It's not black and white.
It humanizes them,
Yeah.
makes you see them as more than just criminals. So what can you tell us about this guy, about his hesitation?
Unfortunately, the sources don't really give us a name or specific details about him, but we know he voiced his concerns. He
Yeah.
questioned the plan, and that speaks volumes.
What do you think was going through his mind? Was it fear, guilt? Maybe he realized how dangerous things were getting.
It was probably a mix of all those things, Maybe he was seeing the violence escalating
Right.
and realizing that someone could get seriously hurt or worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was starting to feel the weight of their actions, the impact on the victims.
It's like a moral awakening in the middle of a crime spree.
Yeah, exactly.
So interesting. Do we know how the others reacted to his hesitation?
The sources don't really go into detail,
Okay.
but you can imagine there was pressure to conform,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
to stay loyal to the group.
It's the classic dilemma, right? You follow your conscience or stick with the pack, especially when the pack is involved in something this dangerous.
It is. And in this case, it seems the pressure to conform won out.
Yeah.
Despite his doubts, he went through with the bombing, which, as we know, failed spectacularly.
It makes you wonder how he felt after that.
Yeah.
Did he ever express any remorse?
Unfortunately, the sources don't provide any insights into his feelings afterwards. We can only speculate.
Right. It's a good reminder that even within a group, there are individual stories,
Yeah.
internal struggles that we might never fully know.
And it's those individual stories that make this case so much more than just a simple true crime story.
Definitely.
It's not black and white. It's not just good guys and bad guys. There are shades of gray, moments of doubt, moments of humanity.
Yeah, those are the moments that really stick with you.
They do.
And I think it's really valuable for our listeners to see that.
Totally.
It's easy to get caught up in the sensationalism of true crime,
Right.
but it's important to remember that these are real people
Real lives.
with real consequences.
And those consequences reach far beyond the headlines.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
The Honda gang's rise and fall, their motivations, their victims, their internal struggles.
And we've seen how all of that fits into the broader context of Helsinki in the 1990s,
Yeah.
a city dealing with some really complex issues.
It's been a fascinating journey, full of twists and turns, moments of audacity, moments of desperation.
Absolutely.
But what I find most intriguing is how their story prompts us to ask deeper questions about ourselves, about the world around us.
That's the power of a good deep dive.
It is. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What resonates with you most from this story?
What thoughts or questions has it sparked for you about crime addiction, about the choices we make when faced with difficult circumstances?
We encourage you to keep exploring those questions, to dive deeper into the issues that intrigue you,
To never stop learning.
and to remember the journey of learning. It's never truly over.
There are always new depths to explore, new perspectives to consider, new insights to uncover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of 1990s Helsinki and the story of the Honda gang. It's a compelling story, sometimes unsettling, but ultimately a very human one.
Until next time.
Keep your minds open and your curiosity alive.